Well, guys, I am extremely, should I say that twice? I'm gonna. Extremely pumped to be here today. We are on episode, well, one of a VIP edition of the Gunn Show. We were on episode 60, 70, 80, something about that, but I had to take a break. It got real busy with MTDCNC last year. We were bouncing all over the country and all over the world. In fact, I broke my 1,000,000 miles with United Airlines, so that was kind of fun. But we needed to get back to podcasting. What better way to do that than to have a VIP edition? Now, for those of you who don't remember, MTDCNC is the main backer behind this show, and I think it's also important to say that the Gunn Show is about humanizing the manufacturing industry. Everything that's made around us, everything you see that's not maybe a human, although I'm seeing a lot of clones these days, and maybe some nature, but I'm seeing even that being made by manufacturers at some point. But unless it's those things, a lot of it, everything is being made by manufacturing, only it's the invisible industry. So we're here today to talk a little bit more about that. I have a special guest. Before I get to that, though, I want to talk and thank to the sponsors that are with us as well. So AMT, MC, Bonnie, Michelle, Peter, all you folks over at AMT, thank you. We really appreciate everything that you do. For everyone who's considering IMTS this year, this is the IMTS year, so we hope to see you there as well. Our second sponsor here is EBITDA Growth Systems. For those of you who have been keeping up with shop, rescue, and priest manufacturing, that is a show that's going to hopefully change the way that manufacturing is looked at as well. It's another one of these really grand ideas that MTDCNC has come up with in partnership with EBITDA Growth Systems. For those of you who do not know EBITDA Growth Systems, it's a consulting company that comes to your facility and helps you become more profitable, I think is the main way to go about saying how this works. And whether that's on the front end, the back end, understanding how to quote, everything all inclusive, understanding how to manage, that's kind of how EBITDA Growth Systems can support this manufacturing industry, and they do a wonderful job. They'll also be at IMTS, so we look forward to seeing you there. Now, without any further ado, I would like to welcome my guest, Mr. Vincent Hensel. He is the Regional Sales Manager. Gosh, sometimes I do stutter on myself. Even though I am quite well-spoken, I get excited, and then I start stuttering. However, he is the Regional Sales Manager at Micron Tool, has one heck of a background. I mean, from Ellison Technologies and Irwin Junker Machinery and Allied Machine and Engineering. This is how he can help us all with the cutting tool side of things. But before we even get into the cutting tool side of things and the excitement of the products, let's talk to Vince and how he even got into this exciting industry to begin with. Vince, thank you so much for being a part of the Gunn Show VIP edition. We do appreciate you. Welcome back to the Gunn Show, my friends. This is the VIP edition.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate your time. Excited to represent Micron and talk about manufacturing. So appreciate your time today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you're here. And you get to be a part of the first episode of the VIP edition. So it's an honor to have you. So let's talk about your background and passion. What inspired you to pursue a career in manufacturing? And what do you think has been your most rewarding experience so far?
From the beginning, it was just like to tinker with stuff, didn't know where I wanted to go, and manufacturing has given me the opportunity to jump around and see lots of different industries, so that's the main reason. Just kind of fell into it on that side. So,
tinkering. I hear that word a lot when I ask that question, tinkering. We talk about a labor shortage right now, right? It's a buzzword. Everyone's looking for help, and we go, well, where can we find it? Well, the video game kids are great for the automation side of things, and we always talk about the tinkerers, the farm kids, the ones that are working on their motorcycles and their dirt bikes and that kind of thing. What kind of a tinkerer were you?
It started early on. My dad had a crazy wood shop in the garage, so I got to see a lot of stuff he made. First motorcycle when I was 18, and then have been working on them ever since. Just did an engine swap on a golf cart and put way too much power in it. That's just fun stuff for me. So.
And how long have you now been in the manufacturing industry?
It's been about 18 years. So I started when I was 14, sweeping floors in a job shop. Didn't know anything, was getting driven to there by my neighbor who worked there just to pick up some extra hours. And I was working at an Italian restaurant and then went to college for it and continued working in machine shops.
So let's talk about going to college for this industry. What school did you go to and what degree did you head toward?
So I did a double major in manufacturing and industrial engineering. It was really great to see more of the design side, high-end, large institutions, GE as well as Eden put a bunch of money into our school, University of Dayton in Southeast Ohio. I can happily say now #1 Catholic engineering school in the nation, over Notre Dame. It's been a long time coming. UDRI, which is the University of Dayton Research Institute, has a lot to do with that, as well as modern aviation because of Wright Pat Air Force Base. All that being said, in today's day and age in machining, college I don't think is the way to go.
Ooh, we could dive into that topic, couldn't we? Because
Yeah.
I'm actually a student that got kicked out of 3 colleges.
Okay.
So we could definitely ride that fence for a little bit. And there is a discussion about that, right? The ROI of trades versus the ROI of university. And does university do great things? Absolutely. But so do the trades, right? And since you brought it up, would you mind elaborating a little bit?
Sure. So I think there's a lot of benefits to college. I think it's a great way to get started, especially if you know exactly what you want to be in and you need certificates to get it. When you don't know what you want to do, though, I think vocational school, whether it's specifically machining, inspection, welding, is a much better way. When you look at it, you can start when you're 18, right out of high school. You can have it paid for. You can have a job. You can have money in the bank without having to take out a loan and hope that you get a job afterwards, depending on the degree you're getting.
I think a lot of the days that we run around the country, you and I, as you have a pretty large territory, and so do I, we find that there are a lot of openings right now. And so for the younger generation that's out there maybe looking for a career path, we do invite you to manufacturing, and we invite you to all trades, fabrication as well. If you're into welding, if you're into the electrical side of things, there is truly great opportunity. I've been in it about 25 years now. Vince is 18. Started when he was a 14-year-old is what he said, which is kind of cool. I want to talk a little bit more about the pursuit in college, and now 18 years later, was it what you thought it would be coming into manufacturing? Has it been better? Has it been worse? Was it exactly what you expected?
Definitely not what I expected. At least originally when I was going to school for it, I swapped from mechanical to manufacturing, which would have been in about 2012. And at that time, it was a terrible idea. Everyone thought, you're not going to get a job. Don't do that. It's all going away. It's in China. It's not coming back. We're never going to machine dies again, which was scary to hear from a bunch of people that have been in the industry, senior, intelligent people you respected. And then 3-5 years later, totally different story. So interesting to see how it changes.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. I mean, we're pretty much of the same generation. I think you're a little younger than me. I started machining back in the 2000s, and that was the echo I heard as well. In fact, the gentleman that taught me how to program was about 60 years old and about to head out the market, and he was teaching me line by line, but we all knew that so much of it had gone overseas is trying to get the lower cost, right? The U.S. was too expensive to make all of these products. So let's create something and ship it overseas for China and India and Indonesia, Vietnam, all these countries to do. But have you seen the same thing I have over the last few years with this massive reshoring initiative? Are you seeing the same?
Absolutely. And a lot of speculation about what happens when things go overseas. And you got a lag. Now you're shipping everything via boat if you have any sort of weight to it. So if you get one bad part, you got another 3 weeks of bad parts coming.
I like that you said that. You're so right, and I've heard this conversation a lot from other folks as well, where the mathematical side of this conversation, which I know the engineers and everyone watching and listening out there, they like the mathematical side, where they go, okay, well, you're charging me, and I'm just going to make up numbers and easy numbers because my brain doesn't work as well as yours, Vince, but easy numbers to say, okay, this part cost me $10 to make, right, when I make it in an overseas place. Well, what about the time? What about the communication? What about if something goes wrong? You know, there's so many reasons, and I think we saw that over the last few years with the miscommunications and the lag time in the ships and all that kind of thing, all the complications that happened. And I've seen companies bringing products back from overseas and actually reducing cost by 30-40% from what it originally was overseas by investing in automation and quality products. Have you also seen that?
I've seen a lot of automation. Started to see that definitely with Ellison in Chicago, with the cobots and the introduction of that, a really nice fluid solution. But also I'm seeing a lot more vertical integration. So companies that want to bring more in, they don't want to trust less end users and customers that they're waiting on their own products to ship, definitely.
Yeah, you nailed that as well, Vince, for sure. And everywhere we go, people are trying to do more in-house. They're even to the point of paint booths and anodizing and things like that. I'm seeing it all being incorporated as much as responsibly can be done in-house. So it's a valid point. Part of that first question I asked you, and I kind of want to go back to that, Vince, and we mentioned 18 years in the industry, going to college. You know, we've gone through this little spiel now. Do you have a story, an idea, even something brief of the most rewarding experience you've had so far in manufacturing? And I know that's kind of a broad topic, and I'm being a little bit long-winded because I'm giving you time to think.
Yeah.
But do you have a really rewarding experience that you could kind of share with the audience?
For me, it's probably how I got started as an outside salesman in CNC tooling, and that was with Allied Machine. Got to go through their training program over there in Dover, Ohio, where they manufacture the vast majority of their tools. Since then, they've bought Wallhopter and other companies. But to be able to see all those different people that want to learn, that want to progress, and see them, whether it's with Allied that stayed there or all across the industry, it seems like every single time you go to a trade show, go to an event that's machining related, you see all of these different people, and it's just a great family atmosphere. So I think the relationships from it would be the answer.
Relationships are a good one. I've met a lot of friends in this industry, and we really are, in my opinion, salt of the earth type of people. The people you want to get to know more, the people that are going to be pretty honest and trustworthy and kind of have the shirt off their back, and I hope to be that type of person as well. If it's okay with you, I'd like to share an experience as well that kind of relates to Micron. Maybe there's a lot of stories I could share, but since you're here today, if it's okay with you, I'd like to share a quick one. Is that all right?
That'd be great.
So I was in Korea, and we were working on some PEEK material. And for those of you who don't know out there, a PEEK material a lot of times is used in aerospace. And when we were drilling it, and when we were drilling it, it kind of oftentimes wraps around a tool. And we were going about 65,000 RPM. So every time we started pecking, and then we went straight through, and we said, okay, are we getting more stringy effect? Are we getting less stringy effect? Well, if we did a little peck and then did, a dwell for a minute and air blasted it and blasted the wrappings off, what if we use a chip breaker of some sort, which is hard to do when the diameter is 10 thousandths in diameter, so we're playing all these games, right? And I remember we had probably 5 different types of drills there that day, and the only one that created success for us was your crazy drills. And they were just so phenomenal in what they were able to do. I was able to double, how CNC has 100%, and then some of the machines will take it up to 200%.
Yeah.
I was able to turn it up to 200%. But for everyone listening right now and watching, if you're watching as well, the reason I say that is because you program it a little bit slower so your drill doesn't break to start, but by pumping it up manually, you can watch it as it's going along. So then once we fine tune it, obviously you don't pump it up to 200. That wouldn't make any sense. But while testing it, I was able to pump it up to 200, right? And really get that thing going. I was just so astonished by what the drills were able to do. So that's my quick story for you.
And we appreciate the feedback. And we're not paying for that either.
No, that's absolutely, yeah. And I wouldn't share a story like that if it wasn't true. And I think that's important to understand. We've kind of talked about school. We've talked about the 18 years. We've spent a little bit of time about what you've learned over, having an experience. Would you mind going into a little bit of where you see the next 10 years? Because we talked about it being offshored. We talked about reshoring. What do you think the next 10 years of manufacturing is going to bring? Do you think we can get enough of these kids excited about it that they're going to come back in, Vince?
Oh, yeah, I hope so. I mean, there's a lot of great talent out there, getting more people trained up. There's other guys out there. No one does it like Tony Gunn. But when you look at certain programs, especially Ace and Tony Schmitz out of Tennessee, the way that they're willing to train people, get everyone up to speed, it's good for our country. It's good for our industry. It's not some dungy place that's a poor paying job that, you're in manufacturing. That's not how it is anymore. So I think that's the most exciting part. Looking forward, we definitely need more people in jobs. But when you look at the industry specifically, and this is also from my point of view, which, the biggest standard tool I sell is 12 millimeters. Most of the time it's less than 1/4 inch. So what I see is a lot tighter tolerances. I see more inspection. I'm seeing more specific alloys and metals, specifically high nickels and chromiums that you're seeing in medical as well as in firearms and defense. So I see tolerances decreasing or getting tighter and sizes getting smaller quite a bit. Now with 3D printing, that's definitely shaking it up. So we'll see what that does in terms of production. 5 years ago, people said, oh, no one's ever going to produce production parts with 3D printing. Well, it's already happening. And they're paying for their knowledge, but that's going to be really interesting to see the capabilities, because now there's all new designs you can have that were never possible before.
Yeah.
So those are the things I'm looking for. And of course, automation is going to continue.
Yeah, I like that answer. And I was actually in a foundry not too long ago in Pennsylvania, and there's not too many of them, the big ones that even exist anymore. And I walked in and I wanted to just kind of pound my chest. I felt like the heartbeat of America, you know what I mean? But you brought up Ace and Tony Schmitz, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about that. Would you mind going into detail about what they're doing there?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me pull out some numbers, but while I do that, they're doing inspection, training, as well as machining, and they're just trying to take the younger generation and get them excited at a no-cost option that gives them the possibility to walk into a relatively high-paying job with some experience and background and certifications that an end user says, okay, they know enough that I can trust them to do job A, job B based on these certifications. So it's not, some crazy sexy thing, but it's something that gives those people a great opportunity and at no cost again.
We can't all be crazy and sexy, can we?
I definitely can't be.
Oh, come on. Don't sell yourself short. Of course you can. So did you find the numbers that you wanted to go over?
So on the numbers for ACE, what we're talking about, and Tony Schmitz is leading the charge at University of Tennessee on this. We got over 5,000 online participants to date and trained over 600 people in person. For metrology, they're going for their first 1,000 this calendar month. And they're welcoming back their certifications and the entire class.
That is pretty cool and something to kind of highlight, right? So if this organization is listening, and I hope they are, and if Tony is listening, and I hope he is, we formally and cordially invite you to be on the Gunn Show as well. We'd love to see you in South Florida, and we could talk more about that program. Now, I'm going to slide a little bit into some of these other questions I have for you because I want to pick your brain, but we're going to get into the tools that are sitting on this table because there's at least 2 or 3 of them I'm really excited to talk about. Bending carbide would be one of those. So we'll get into that in just a minute, but I want to kind of go into, aside from your professional life, before we get real professional, we're going to step away from professional real quick and go, aside from your professional life, what's a fun fact about you or a hobby that you're passionate about?
Fun fact is I'm an Eagle Scout.
Oh, no kidding.
So that was interesting.
I only made it to Cub Scouts, I think. Yeah.
It's a good time. So that kind of leads right into the hobby question. So I like to be outdoors, try different things, always traveling, and always trying to go fishing on my boat whenever I get the chance. So
You any good?
Simple man. No.
No. But I hear the beer tastes good when the fishing is slow.
Allegedly, yeah, that's the case. So.
All right, I'm gonna give you one more question before we move into these tools because I know that the audience, as much as they love hearing both of us talk about ourselves, also want to hear about how they can have successes at their shop as well, right?
Sure.
So I'm just gonna kind of roll the dice here, and this is a fun one. So, how do you think manufacturing impacts the global economy?
That's a great question, and for me, it's hard to imagine the global economy without machining. So
can you imagine that? What would it be like without machining?
I mean, we'd have no engines, we would have no tires, we'd have no
Planes?
vehicles, definitely no planes. I mean, we're using bow and arrows.
Nobody be dancing on TikTok because TikTok wouldn't exist because your phones wouldn't exist.
Pros and cons. Yeah.
Pros and cons, yeah. We agree with all that. TV that's right behind us wouldn't be made.
Yeah, so I guess it's perspective. From my point of view, being machining, everything I see, you see something plastic, oh, there's a mold involved. You see something moving, it was designed, it was prototyped, it was machined, it was put into production. It was checked on the back end through inspection. Everything. Which sometimes I think is really hard to get across to people that might not be in machine shops, that might not see different prints every day. And when people say, oh, like, what do you do? Manufacturing. Oh,
huh?
What kind of parts? Like you make cars? Yeah. So Everything. I think that without machining, without manufacturing, I mean, caves,
Yeah.
cave age.
Cave age is correct.
Yeah.
And you're right. When somebody says, what do you make? Well, your products touch every industry. You know, you're into everything. So somebody goes, well, what do you make? But I have a question for you, Vince. And I asked this question for all of our guests here today that are behind the screens here and the younger generation as well. We lose people when you and I talk about manufacturing because we've been doing it so long. We talk about these cool things and these technologies, and we say everything's made from manufacturing, but there's still something missing. There's a dot that hasn't connected when someone's outside the industry. And I think back to myself as well. I was an athlete. They removed most of our, let's say, trades to replace it with the gym for the football team. And I didn't really know about manufacturing until I needed health insurance, and I got a job accidentally in manufacturing. So I think back to myself and go, I didn't know. I didn't care. If I could get an extra credit in my high school or whatever, I go into the world of trades, and I found that was naturally something I could do more than speaking Spanish or taking calculus, which somehow that found its way back into my life. So great. But how do you think we can connect the dots, Vince? Do you have any ideas of the generation that's coming up? How can we get them excited and help them understand truly what manufacturing brings to stabilizing households, to stabilizing neighborhoods, to stabilizing economies, to stabilizing countries around the world?
I definitely don't have all the answers, but from the front end of it, I think that if you get people's hands on it, working with it, even on a lower or simpler level, when I think back to like just simple machining, making a C-clamp, right? So you start out with a simple project, just like woodshop. You start out with a birdhouse. So we're not going to start out with an airplane. We'll start out with something very simple just to get their hands on it and get comfortable.
My birdhouse fell apart, by the way.
Did it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a gruesome wood story about a guy that cut his middle finger right up the middle on a bandsaw. That was it for woodshop for me, but
I saw one of those happen in my high school as well. Oh my gosh, let's not do flashbacks for the audience.
Yeah.
I think everyone who's listening right now, if you have a horror story that you'd like to share in the comments, by all means do it. Not my favorite thing. I don't even watch horror movies. But if you'd like to share in Vince and I's pain currently mentally, you're more than welcome to leave something in the comments. All right, Vince, let's talk about some products because we have some games to play as well. We got 2 games we're going to do at the end. 2 truths and a lie, and if I were that game as well. But let's talk about some of the products. If you wouldn't mind highlighting something unique, something that's standard, something that you would like to bring to the attention of the global audience listening right now.
Sure. So most people know Micron as crazy drills.
That's how I know them.
We're guys that make really tiny drills, really long. So it's really easy for me to start out and right out of the gate go with our stainless geometry, 40 times D stocked on the shelf. We go up to 1/4 inch. It's a great geometry across the board, not just for stainless, but when you talk about the technical sides of it, I'm talking about the oversized coolant holes that are in a teardrop shape, which I'm sure are not coming through on the video because it is a rather small tool. But that gives us the capability between that, the K-land, and our hone on it that we're able to break chips in most materials that are going to wrap, and we're going to hopefully in decent conditions not be pecking at all. So when we're talking about going 40 times D, we want to do it and be as concentric as possible, be right on hole size tolerance. We'll never drill undersize, and we want to go straight in a G83, one shot, no pecking.
Vince, if I was to sit on the side of a agnostic news channel, hint, hint, wink, wink, I would ask you the question. I would say that everyone wants to do what you just described in the world that you're working in. What sets Micron apart? How are you capable and able to really set yourself apart as a leader in that piece of the industry?
That's a good question. So that definitely starts for us in Switzerland. That starts with Marcus Schneider, who just retired from Micron. We originally came from Micron. So there's Micron Group, and there's 3 parts to that. There's Micron Automation, Micron Machine, which most people would be familiar with, either the rotary transfers or the now GF machines, which they sold off to George Fisher, and then there's the tooling division. So it started with a couple of crazy Swiss guys that had a better idea of how to make a solid carbide drill in '97, and they've been building on it, and they're willing to try anything. They're crazy guys, and it really, really is their brainchild and comes from those guys testing geometries. We got 7 machines that all they do is test on and run different programs and different materials. And to be honest, most of it is actually designed from a problem. It's not, hey, let's make this great product for industry. It's, hey, we sold this machine and we need to make these tools work. What can we do? So it started out really with Rolex in Switzerland when they're making faces for the watches. And they needed to be able to make them faster, better, more accurate.
Crazy guys making crazy drills with crazy sales guys. Is that kind of the order of things here?
Crazy.
A lot of crazy.
Yep.
All right, so you've made the product because you're solving problems, and I love when that comes to play because solving problems is important to all of us, right? And Rolex, way to name drop there. Yeah, if Rolex is listening, we'd love a couple of watches, by the way. We do help you make them. Probably not going to happen. However, when it comes to solving problems, do you have any tools here today or any stories you'd like to share about a problem that seemed almost unfixable that you either heard a story of through Crazy Drill or through yourself that you participated in firsthand that you can share with the audience?
Absolutely. So I could talk on this one for a while.
Please do. I like it.
On the medical side, we like to try different things, and this is going to be specific to bone screws. So we have both we call it a hexalobe drill, and then we also have the mill for it. So the mill is standard. Other people manufacture similar mills. They just have to be extremely accurate and smaller in size. But what's really interesting is going to be the drill that does pre-drill, center hole, and it will also deburr a bone screw in one shot. And we have them from T4 through T20, which is going to be your standard hexalobe sizes on bone screws. So that's very specific. That's only for bone screws, and it's made to the standard specs on that.
I like that. So I'm starting to get older as well, and I'm realizing that I'm going to need some replacement parts in my body because of my many years of athletics. You sit in that same boat, Vince?
I hope not. I've seen some of the things they have to do with these parts, and it gets pretty gruesome, but it's getting better consistently.
Thank goodness they knock us out first, and we don't have to be a part of that. And you're right, I've seen that too. But I am grateful for, again, back to manufacturing, and what would be without manufacturing? Well, we'd be limping a lot, we'd be hurting a lot, and yeah, bone screws legit important, as well as all the medical attributes that go around it. You know, one day I'm gonna walk through a hospital. They're never gonna let me do this, by the way, but I'm gonna walk through a hospital and just point at things with the camera and go, "Thank you, manufacturing. Thank you, manufacturing." Because we don't get enough credit in there, and we're making everything to help people. Okay. I'm going to make you talk about one because you brought this out even before we hit record on this podcast, and you had a tiny, tiny drill that you actually flexed the carbide, and carbide's not meant to flex. In fact, high-speed drills did that a little bit, and carbide was supposed to be better, and every time carbide flexed, it broke, at least in my general experience. Would you mind talking about that product and how that works?
Yeah, so again, this was made to solve a problem, and the flex drill, which is what we're talking about here, is a through tool coolant, only through tool on the shank, and it's going to be neck down, which means that the flutes do not go the entire way. So you are required to peck with this, unless you only need it for reach. And we found that we could manufacture this drill for less money than our fully fluted one and get really good performance, especially in high nickel alloys. So this is always a showstopper. I always like to show that the capability there, and that also came from when we were making rotary transfer machines. The individual heads did not have the accuracy of the standard Micron high-end, $1 million milling machine like you'd have in a Yaza and some of these other very nice brands. So what we did to get around it is essentially still use carbide but have more filler so that you have that flexibility without breaking it, but it's still rigid enough to hold up long term.
I have to ask you, Vince, because the gentleman I'm about to mention is also a person who lives here in South Florida, and believe me, I will get back full circle to what you just talked about. But were you ever a Vanilla Ice fan?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you said something about, having a problem, and every time somebody says that, my brain goes, if there's a problem, I'll solve it. Check out the beat. I know. I'm sorry, audience. I do it all the time. It's terrible. But I have to do it. That's how my brain works. All right, Vince, you ready to play a couple of games?
All right, let's go.
Did you prepare yourself for two truths and a lie? I brought it up a few minutes ago. Are you a good liar, a bad liar? Do you have a lot of lies to tell me, or are you a truth man?
Terrible liar, but I think I'm prepared for this one.
All right, so I'll let you go. Two truths and a lie. I want you to do it. I'm actually going to pause just to give the audience a little bit of time to make their own decision, just a couple of seconds, and then I'll try to guess as well.
Okay. I already gave a good one away. So we'll start with one time I had to call NASA on a part that I made incorrectly. I have a full back tattoo, and I have 3 animals at home.
All right, audience. Did he call NASA? Does he have a full back tattoo? Or does he have 3 animals at home? What do you think? Is there some rights to that? Can I even hum that song? I'm not sure what the legalities are to that. Maybe I'll stop or hum it badly. All right, Vince, I've given them enough time. I've done enough wandering in my conversation. Your lie is the back tattoo.
That's true. I never had to call NASA, but my boss did.
But your boss had to call NASA. Ah, you got me on the first one.
Tap was 1/8 of an inch too big, oversized, the heat-treated titanium. Actually, the capsule that the astronauts would go to the International Space Station on in between their shuttle, and it was a tool call out. I did it correctly, and the guy looked at it, happened to be in the same tool slot, same style of tap, and it was 1/8 inch too big. And you can't weld over heat-treated titanium. It was one of the last ops. And they found out when they already cleaned it up, anodized it, and thread checked everything. They found it at the very end that the thread didn't fit. Disaster. I thought I was going to lose my job for sure on that one.
But you didn't.
Did not.
What was the result? Just a lot of yelling, or?
NASA okayed it, and the machinist had to go home for a week or so.
Goodness gracious. See what two truths and a lie will bring you? Oh my goodness. All right. So the next game we're going to play is called the If I Were game. And it's where I ask Vince a couple of questions, and I'm going to use an example. If you were a tool used in manufacturing, what would you be and why? That's not your question, but for the audience, I'm going to give manufacturing scenarios that allow him to decide what he would be and why. So, you're right. You can actually, I'm actually going to give you, because I've given you no heads up on this, Vince, as far as what your questions will be. So if I ask you one, if you're like, ooh, pass, please, you're welcome to use a pass.
Okay.
Does that sound good? Because I got a whole roll of questions here. All right. If you were a manufacturing process, which one would you be and why? For example, 3D printing, because you bring innovative ideas to life. But if you were a manufacturing process, which one would you be and why?
Brazing.
Oh, nice. Most people probably don't. Well, a lot of people on our channel do. But behind the scenes, I bet nobody knows what brazing is. Would you mind describing that first?
So think of welding, but more accurate with less slag.
I like it. Well described.
That's the way I would describe it. And there's a lot of heat. There's a lot of friction. Things seem like they might not always go right, but in the end, pretty accurate. Works out, and you got a nice finished product.
And that's why you choose that one?
First one came to mind. I thought grinding, but I hate the sound of it, you know.
Oh, you look like a grinder.
It's accurate.
Yeah.
But I just hate the sound of it.
All right, second question for you. If you were a piece of safety equipment in a manufacturing plant, what would you be and why?
Ooh. Steel toes. Simple.
And well, simple. Is simple the reason why?
Hmm?
Okay. Well, that's easy. You made that one nice and short, huh?
Yeah. Very simple, to the point. That's it. Straightforward.
Protecting people's feet.
Yep.
I value
Feet
that.
Protector, you know?
We're going to have to put that as your new title or hashtag. Maybe we'll use that for the podcast.
No,
Vince the Feet
idea.
Protector.
I don't like that idea.
All right, last one. If you were a raw material used in manufacturing, what would you be and why?
17.4 H900, no doubt.
That is very specific. Why?
Very high end, used in medical, used in guns. Really nice finish afterwards, but also it takes a lot of know-how to machine it well consistently.
So kind of like our personalities, right?
That's a stretch, but I like it. Yep, absolutely.
Well, Vince, you have made it to the end of the Gunn Show VIP edition, the very first one, and I actually want to toast to you being here, taking your time. We all understand how valuable time is. It's the most precious commodity that any of us have. I hope this show becomes as valuable for you as it has been for us, and I hope we bring value to the audience as well. If my friends could go ahead and bring on, we're going to celebrate. We have a nice... we're just taking a small little drink here, but a nice bottle of bourbon. Vince and I are going to celebrate and commemorate this moment to Micron Tool. Vince, my friend, you are incredible. I appreciate you sharing not just yourself, but the products and your time.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it, Tony. I'd like to take this time to thank you. Look forward to the industry in 24. It's not quite from Japan, but with NS Tool and Micron, Gombe.
Gombe. I like it.
To a great 2024, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you and your time. Thank you.
All right, and for everyone watching, I also have a gift for Vince. If you guys could bring it on. We love you being in the camera. We don't have to worry about that,
Yeah.
Ben. You're allowed to be on our podcast. But for everyone watching, you don't have to know what Vince gets today. This is the Gunn Show VIP edition, the relaunch that we're so stoked about. We appreciate you all either watching or listening, and we'll see you again next week.